So in the last video, we saw how to create a basic search functionality where you can type letters and based on the word, it returns the result in the table. If you haven't checked that video, the link is in the description. Go check it out. In this video, we are going to talk about how to create a search with autocomplete suggestions. So if I type ER, it gives me the result. It gives me the suggestion based on ER and I can click on any name and it returns the result. So instead of rendering the whole table on every keystroke, we can use something like a auto suggestion, and this saves actually a lot of CPU consumptions and memory, because think about if we have millions of data, then on every keystroke, if we go through all of this data in the table and then do some operations, it's going to be a heavy task. So auto suggestion comes in this place and helps a lot. We are going to continue on the code from our last video, where on each keystroke, it goes through all of the data in the table and returns the result. If you haven't seen that video, the GitHub repository is in my description. You can clone this and you can start it with the live server extension, which will look something like this. Let's start by adding a suggestion box just below this search bar. So we're going to create a HTML element for this suggestion box. Let's give it an ID and a class name. Now we need to create items inside this suggestion box. So we're going to give it a suggestion item, just like any other table items, right? We need to create a whole list of suggestion items inside this box. So save it. Okay, this looks a little bit ugly. Let's add some CSS. I'm gonna give a width, a max height. Why a max height, not a height? Because it can be a single item or it can be hundreds of items, right? So we don't know how many items it's gonna be. We also say overflow y is auto. That means that, okay, if that goes beyond 100 pixels, we're gonna add a scroll bar. We add some border, a border radius, and some margin top. Now let's style this item. We give it a background color, some padding, some margin, and a cursor pointer. Now we need to add some JavaScript so that we can create these items, or we can create a list of items based on the letters we search here. So first what we need to do is we need to disable this functionality where it renders the table. So instead of calling this onSearch function, we are going to call now onSearch autosuggest. Now we need to create this function in our JavaScript. So first we are going to take the suggestion box, the big box where all the items of the suggestion is going to be there. Now we are looping through all of this data we have. So we have this data, right? So we have name, username, and email IDs. So this data can be coming from any API or something, but we have just kept it in an array.
You serious?
For the simplicity. Now we loop through all of this data and we check, okay, if the name inside the data has the letters that we have typed. So e dot value will give me the word or the letters that we have typed. So if that exists in the name, we will say, okay, let's now create an item. If that exists, then we will create a suggestion item. So we will be basically creating a div. And inside that div, we say, okay, that div should have an ID of suggestion item and a class name of suggestion item, so that we can take advantage of this CSS. Now we say that what is the text that is going to be inside the suggestion item? Well, that is nothing but the name that is inside the data. So we want to show this name as a suggestion if that matches. Now we are appending that item inside our box. Let's see how it works. Well, it keeps on appending and appending. So what we need to do here, Let's go back to our HTML and comment out this hard-coded suggestion item. Now that we know how to create or how to append suggestion items inside this box, let's go and check it out. Well, we need to fix this issue. So let's remove all the suggestion before appending any suggestion item into the box. So we're gonna take the suggestion list item, the list of all the suggestions that are currently in this box. So how do we do that? Well, we know that inside this suggestion box, every suggestion item is going to be a div. So we take that, okay, get element by tag name. This basically returns all the div items inside the suggestion box. Now we loop through all of these suggestion items and say that make their display or make their styling as none. So display none will basically remove this item from the DOM or from the HTML. So we save that. Now let's test it out. Okay, well, this works well. There is only a slight problem. You see, when we clear all the items in the suggestion, here is a list of all the names, all the 10 names in this box. So this is not a functionality that we desire, right? So we need to remove this one. So whenever we clear the search result, this box should go away. So we add a if check saying that, okay, if my value is not equals to empty, so that means if the search box have any value, then append any item, otherwise don't. Let's test it out. It works. Now what we are going to do here is we're going to click on the suggestion and this box should go away. This text should come up here on the search bar and the result should display in the table.
क्या बात है सर क्या बात है सर क्या बात ये बात है
So let's add a function called onSearchItemClick and let's take the text of the suggestion and let's add it into the search box. Now we are going to close the suggestion box after user has clicked. So we're going to pass the value empty into our function called onSearchAutoSuggest. So if we do that, you see it removes all the suggestion and it's not going to come inside here because this check will basically be false. So it will not append anything. So this says that, okay, this will remove all the suggestion or basically it will remove the suggestion box. And then we need to search the result. Then we need to show the result in the table. So we're going to pass the value of text that we are getting from the suggestion into this function, and this function basically re-renders the table and shows the correct result. So now we are going to set an attribute saying that, okay, suggestion item, every suggestion item should have a on-click attribute, and whenever I click on this attribute, it should call this function on search item click, and we're going to pass the inner text of the suggestion item. Well, let's test it out. So we type LEA, I click on this item, cool, it shows. Now I type ER, let's check. Well, it shows me the correct result, but it has one problem. You see, whenever I clear all the data, the table should come up in the last state or the original state. It should show me all the data, right? So we're gonna add a else check saying that, okay, if it is not empty, I mean, if it is empty,
अरे कहना क्या चाहते हो
then call this function with an empty value. So if I call this function with an empty value, it's going to show me all the results in the table. Well, let's save it. Let's check it out. LEA, I click on this item and now I clear this item. Well, you see this line here. If we don't have any suggestion, the suggestion box is still active. So we need to remove this box if we don't or we haven't searched anything, right? So what we're gonna do here, so let's first remove this suggestion box hard-coded class name from here. So if you remove that, you see, okay, now it doesn't have the class name, so it's not gonna take this CSS or it's not gonna take this border, and that border is basically showing, right? So let's add that class If we have a value, so if we have any value here in the search box, then we add that class, and in the same fashion, we remove that class if we don't have any value. Well, let's save it. Let's test it out. Click on this item, we remove it. Well, it works. The box only comes up if we have any value on the search box. Cool.